Awesome, awesome. Thank you for having me. Let me get a second just to pull up some slides I have here, and then I will dive right in. Oops. Let's rewind. All right. So once again, thank you for having me this evening. I still am always getting a little used to the virtual space. I'm one of those people who feeds off of the room, and so I'm just going to not close my eyes the entire presentation, but sort of imagine that I'm in a room amongst friends and who are interested in some of the work that we're building up out here at the city and interested in the work and the moment that we're in as a city, and share a little bit more about me, a little bit more about our office, about this Together We Heal initiative, and some of the strategies and work that we're lifting up in this particular moment. So I will start with just sharing. So again, my name is Candace Moore. I'm the city's first Chief Equity Officer, serving in the office of Mayor Lightfoot. This is the first time that the city has had a Chief Equity Officer, as well as the first time it's had an Office of Equity and Racial Justice. And so the mission of my office is really to help the city build what I call a muscle for equity in how we do business as a city. So that includes our service delivery, decision-making, resource distribution, and community engagement. And we really do this by thinking about the work of the city, the work of our departments, and how do we really begin to operationalize equity into our work. Just want to give a shout out to my team. So these are the folks who keep me together on a daily basis, who help make the magic happen. So grateful for all of their time and their talents. I really appreciate the diversity of our team, the diversity of perspectives, the diversity of thought, but the sort of united front and push for equity that I think all of us carry in our own individual way. We're strong, we're small but mighty is what we say, and we've gotten a lot of impressive work done in just the short amount of time we've been together. So what does a Chief Equity Officer do? I can imagine some people have that question. I get it quite a lot, and there's a technical way that I talk about this. A Chief Equity Officer oversees the development, coordination, and administration of racial and social equity policies and practices for the city of Chicago. And then there's another way I talk about it. I'm kind of feeding into this analogy that I gave of a muscle. And sometimes I say I'm the personal trainer for equity. And what I mean by that is that if equity is a muscle and we need to build it as a city, then my job is not to work out for you. So you don't come to the Office of Equity, you don't come to the Chief Equity Officer asking them to do the equity work. Instead, I am here to support, bring resources, bring strategy, and bring guidance to really help all parts of the city kind of work out that muscle. And just like a muscle, results don't happen overnight. And so I recognize this fundamentally as a process that we have to get better at, a process that we're going to grow stronger over time, but something that, takes time, and you have gains and you have setbacks. But fundamentally, you're keeping your eye towards building and growing stronger across many different phases of the work. And so that's work happening at the department, that's work happening in the mayor's office, and that's work happening in partnership with our communities. Sorry. 1 second. So, oh, apologies. Some of the highlights from our work. So these are some pictures that were, as you can tell, taken pre-COVID. because we were in person and maskless. Remember those days. But when we first started the work, some of the foundation that we laid was we had a regional equity partnership convening. This is an opportunity that we brought leaders from all three sectors of government, the city, the state, the county together to talk about racial equity and to hear directly from the leadership in their respective sectors about why they cared about racial equity, why they wanted that at the forefront of their agenda. And so you see pictured there, Mayor Lightfoot, Lieutenant Governor Stratton, and Cook County President Tony Preckwinkle, all together talking about the importance of racial equity and the importance of leading from a place of racial equity. We have established an Equity Advisory Council, a council of about 19 leaders who bring their time and their talent to really help us think about how we're building out this work. We are really building and laying the foundation for something new. And so having their support, their guidance, their thoughts, and their relationships to the work really I see as foundational. We did a lot of community roundtables when we first started, just engaging with community about what does equity mean to you? What does equity work look like? And then we also visited a number of other cities that had started an equity office to learn a little bit more, including Oakland, San Francisco, San Antonio, New York. I'm sure there's another one that I'm missing, but I really got a chance to learn a lot about how other cities are sort of taking on this role. Chief equity officers are sort of newer to government. Most of us are about maybe around 5 years, some a bit longer. I would say on the longer end is Seattle. That's been at this work for about 20 years. And there's a lot of lessons learned to be had out of Seattle, and also a realization of how long this work really is, and seeing, yes, the progress that they've made, but the challenges that they still have in front of them. One thing I'll lift up as another highlight is this racial equity rapid response team that we developed during COVID, recognizing a lot of the disparate impacts that we were seeing and the disparate outcomes we were seeing in community. We took this approach of building really a coalition of government, of community, of healthcare providers, all coming to the table together to really try to go deeper in terms of our public health strategy of trying to mitigate the impacts of COVID. This is some of the work that I didn't necessarily plan in my agenda, like everyone else in the world. I had no idea COVID was around the corner. But this is some work that I'm really, really proud of, because I feel like it lives out what my values in this work, the ability to center people most impacted in our strategies, to co-create with communities that have been most impacted, and to try and to build work and develop and mitigate negative outcomes, and come up with innovative solutions for how we can solve problems, and to have a dynamic partnership between government and community that redefines the traditional ways that we've come to know government, but really witness the power of and the effectiveness that can happen when communities and government come together. I think what we've built has been really special, and I'm really proud of not only the outcomes that we've achieved, but also the relationships that we've been able to develop in this work. This work has pushed me further than I thought it would. It has challenged me, but ultimately it has given me so much. And so I'm so grateful to all of the community leaders and the partners that are part of the Racial Equity Rapid Response. And I feel really deeply, I feel really strongly that this work that we are doing has been so important to our COVID response. Not only in those communities that we have been focusing on, but really for the entire enterprise, to witness and to engage and to see a different kind of partnership, that it can be possible if we put the time, the resources, and the intention on it. And so I feel like this is a strategy I certainly want to see grow and to continue to be supported as we move forward. I also wanted to give this group a sneak peek at some work that we're looking to launch soon. I feel like this is an audience that might definitely appreciate it. The question of how do you define success and equity is one that I've been met with since I started. And I think the answer is actually quite complex. There are many layers of how we think about equity. But what we wanted to do with the equity dashboard is really think about a series of different metrics that begin to help tell the story of where Chicago is at, where Chicago city government is at, as well as what our progress has been and what our focus could and should be as we move forward. And so the equity dashboard, over the last few months, we've gotten to build a really powerful partnership with Nick Lucius, our chief data officer, and with the support of Bloomberg Associates and Bloomberg LP, have developed this dashboard that takes in our employee data and really with sort of the user in mind lays out the data in a way that both our internal workforce can understand it, but also our external partners. And so in the coming weeks, we are looking forward to launching this publicly, and it updates, daily. So it's something that can really sort of be available for people to kind of have access to it and really think about this element of equity, which is around our diversity metrics. We have goals to continue on and think about procurement, think about equity goals that we set, and think about larger equity metrics. And so we want to continue to build different layers onto this dashboard so that people can really kind of engage around this question of what does success look like? What does equity look like when we think about data and metrics? So the reason you all joined tonight, so I just wanted to kind of lay some of that foundation of our work, but I really want to make sure I take the time to introduce you to Together We Heal, if you haven't heard about it already, and explain a little bit about why we are doing this and what we are doing. So Together We Heal is really a multi-pronged approach to advance racial healing and transformation in Chicago. And what I'll back up and say is that Together We Heal is really something that me and my team have been thinking about a while. I think it marries thoughts that we had certainly before COVID, before the specific racial reckoning moments that we've seen in 2020. But it was designed to meet the moment, where as I would do my work, I would hear about the healing work that communities all across the city were having, trying to keep and support their community members, their friends, their families, and networks as they all navigated very difficult times in which people were getting sick, times in which people were losing jobs and losing income, times in which people were socially isolated from one another. I heard the ways in which people were trying to support each other and take care of one another. And at the same time, I also heard about folks who wanted to engage. They wanted to figure out ways to heal. They wanted resources and ideas, and ultimately wanted to feel connected to others. And so Together We Heal tries to envision and meet that, the importance of community level healing, but also envision strategies for how do we have public and collective conversations that reckon with our past and make sense and make a vision of our future, as well as build the strategies for institutional transformation. So a number of these strategies are things that we I came in the door thinking that I would work on, but really trying to braid and marry it to the moment to really sort of take stock of where we're at has been really important to this effort. And so a lot of what people are seeing right now is actually just centered on that first pillar. And in a nutshell, we have laid out a community healing challenge, asking our communities to engage around healing conversations and healing efforts and activities. And then in just a couple weeks here, we're going to culminate that challenge with a healing summit. Now, I will be very clear that I don't anticipate that we are healed as a city by the end of January. I'm not that naive, but I do think that January can be a time for us to reflect on the work that we have done and set a course and set a vision for what a year ahead might look like. What might a year of healing look like? What did we learn? What did we hear from the reflections that we have had over the last couple of months? And so that summit moment is meant to be a moment of reflection and a moment of visioning. And just to dig a little deeper, so the Racial Healing Challenge, we basically ask three different things. One, we've been asking people to commit to racial healing. Even as imperfect as that may seem in this moment, even as complicated and messy as that might seem, the ability to commit and to say, I'm going to work towards it, I'm going to work through it, I'm going to work through the challenge is so important to our ability to sort of build a foundation that we can vision off of. We are asking people to host your own racial healing event with your community, however you define that. Whether that is your family, whether that is your friends, whether that is coworkers, colleagues, neighbors, host different opportunities. It doesn't have to be that hard. It doesn't have to be that deep. It can be quite easy, but it can be that powerful. So, and we've built some tools to support people that I'll share here in a second. And then ultimately, we want people learning. We want people to learning from one another. We want people engaging in literature, in podcasts, and finding different opportunities to learn a little bit more about each other, about issues of race, issues of healing, and ultimately more about us as Chicagoans. Because even as we think about, a day in which we recover from COVID, I always say, I hope we don't really just go back to normal, but that we are transformed by what we've experienced and that we build something that is richer, that is deeper, that is truer, that is more equitable, more inclusive, and more powerful to create space for Chicago to really thrive and grow into its potential and into the city that we all love. So we had that racial healing challenge, but I also want to share with this group a few different tools that we built out to support this challenge. You can find these on our website. I'll have that link here at the back end. But one of the really cool things that I was very excited about was this healing map that we developed. And when I say we developed, it wasn't me and that beautiful team alone that you see. It was also shout out to our AIS team in the city, our department, our tech department, and particularly Jason Kunish and his team, Hamani, who really did a wonderful job taking, and I'll fully admit, my somewhat crazy vision. I came to them and I was like, I'd like to see a map. And I'd like people to be able to put their events on a map, because I'd like people to see, even if they can't be outside, all of the work that's happening across Chicago. Can you help me make that happen? And I'm sure after they sort of said, okay, Candace, you're a little crazy. Actually, they didn't say that to me. They said, this really could be possible. And so we explored together some tools to really make that happen. And what you see in this map, which is live on the website, is the labor of love that both my team, the AIS team, really kind of put together to really birth this tool that, as you can see, is growing. 96 events, 2,000 people across Chicago have shared with us the healing work that they're doing, and it's growing. Additionally, we also wanted to support people in conversations. And so we had this vision for like a conversation deck, a conversation starters, but we're all virtual. So how are you going to do that? And so with a little bit of like creative thinking, we took some basic widgets that we have as part of our website system and kind of mimic this idea of a virtual card deck. And so we have warm-up questions, real talk questions, cool down questions that people can go through fairly easily to have a basic conversation about race, healing, and Chicago. And so I invite all of you to go to the website and to use this and really to support healing conversations that you might have. It really is as simple as just going to the website and just following the simple instructions there and hosting a conversation. So maybe that can be a Shine Hack Night event at one point. Just to talk a little bit here about the Healing Summit. So on Friday, January 29th, we're, after doing all of this work around healing and watching the map grow, we're going to come together for a summit. And the summit is going to be a day long, but it's a 2-part event. So one is the showcase program in the morning. That's going to be live streamed for anyone to watch. So we're going to be streaming that from the city's website and social media channels. So you're more than welcome to, we ask you to join us. And as we share reflections from Together We Heal with our anchor partners, with some artists, and we'll have the mayor join us for that program. And in the afternoon, we're going to have more of an intimate gathering, 500 of our closest friends to really come together to dig deeper in conversation, but also to vision about what does equity mean for Chicago and what might next steps for a year of healing really look like. One surefire way to join and be a part of that intimate gathering actually is to host an event. We are going to extend an invite to every host that fills it in an event for the map. So if you definitely want to be a part of that, I encourage you to make sure you host an event and put it on the map. I just want to talk a little bit about, sometimes when I talk about this, people say, okay, Candace, what's the point of all of this? What does success look like to you? And so we have some very basic things in terms of, we want to see people have conversations. We want those conversations to be open, honest, of talking about race, harm, and healing. We think that this is also a time to increase our awareness about bias, historic and systemic inequities, and systems of exclusion. It's also a time for us to connect in a time in which we are very disconnected from one another, and connect as Chicagoans when there's a lot going on and there's a lot of isolation. I mean, we want to see, for sure, we want to see more activities on that map. We want to see activities in all 77 community areas. And in fact, I'm pretty confident we're going to leave the map open longer than January so we can make sure we hit some of those goals. But we want the momentum from this initiative to really sort of help us develop a roadmap for a year ahead. We want to build a shared statement of equity. We want to build our definition of equity. There are lots of definitions that I've seen from other cities. I want Chicago to have its moment and define what equity means and what we're going to hold ourselves to. And then ultimately, I want this is designed to strengthen relationships among Chicagoans towards positive change. There's a lot going on in the world right now at the national level, at local levels, in our personal relationships in our communities. There's a lot of hurt. There's a lot of harm. I'm not suggesting that we can get through all of that overnight, but I am saying that I don't think if we believe in a fundamental sense of mutuality, a sense that we have to engage with one another to begin to figure this out and to build more opportunities, more inclusion, more ideas, more strategies, then I don't think we stand much of a chance. And so Together We Heal is just one offering. There's certainly more. I don't seem to suggest that this is the only way, but this is a way that we at the Office of Equity thought of how we can be in relationship to community and to the work that we need to do as a city as we begin to build out many of those strategies. How can they begin to meet? How can they begin to merge? And how can they work in service of one another? And so Together We Heal is our offering in that sense. So who's with us? Who out there is interested, excited about this? And if you are, I have a couple asks for you. So the first is that I want to make sure you visit the website, www.chi.gov, Together We Heal. The website's live right now. You can access it. There you'll find many of the things that I talked about specifically. So please explore the website to learn more and go a little bit deeper. I want you to host a healing event. I know it can seem kind of intimidating. I'm telling you, it can be as easy as you and 3 other friends doing the conversation starters or listening to a podcast together. We have a resource library. We have an easy host guide for you to utilize. We've put together so many resources. We're all on Zoom anyway, so just grab some folks, put them on Zoom. We're actually going to be making a special ask from MLK's birthday that people host a healing event and put it on the map. So please think about that. Grab some folks together and engage in a conversation. Engage to learn a little bit more about one another, to talk about some of the things that we've all been experiencing together and to vision a little bit about our city together. Please save the date. Whether you do a healing event or not, whether you want to go to the conference portion or not, we definitely want you to check out that virtual summit, especially in the morning. So save the date, Friday, January 29th, 10 a.m. to 12:30. We'll have more details coming in the coming days, but save the date. We'd love to have you join us virtually. And then tomorrow at 5:30, we have Candid Conversation series that we started last week. Last week was the healers. This week is the neighbors. And I'm super excited. If you don't know her or her work, Tanika Johnson and the Folded Map Project. It's a beautiful project. I'm super excited. She's going to be with us. And some of the map twins that are part of her project will also be with us, having a candid conversation about healing, about Chicago, and about community. So please join us tomorrow at 5:30. We will be on the Public Narrative Facebook page, so you can just tune in there. And then I'll just close by saying, once again, I'm super grateful to be with you all this evening. I hope that I gave you a little bit more insight to the work that we're building. This is just a piece of it. There's so many different things that me and my team are doing day in and day out. But this is something that has been a real labor of love and a vision, both for our communities and for our city. So I hope that you will join us. I hope that this will be meaningful to you. And I hope that in this moment, that even in the midst of the challenges and the struggles that we are facing day in and day out, we find the strength and we find the power to build. And so with that, I'm more than happy to take any questions that folks may have. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We have a number of questions from folks in the audience. First, real quick comment. Tanika Johnson spoke at Chi Hacknet a couple years ago.
Oh, so did she? Yay!
It's amazing, and I definitely encourage everyone to check out Folded Map Project. That project's great, and it's super awesome to see the connections, right, and see that all come together. I'll go ahead and kick it off with the first question. So you mentioned earlier in your presentation that other cities have chief equity officers as well. What are some of the things that they've done that were inspirational to you and your work?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have had the privilege of meeting a number of the chief equity officers. I'm actually in a network of chief equity officers. We've joked that nobody understands our jobs but one another. They are. It's intimidating sometimes to be together because of the power of the work. So I'm the new kid. I feel like the new kid on the block, even though there are some people who are even newer than I am. But one example is how I'm thinking about the equity dashboard. I was actually inspired by a number of different chief equity officers who are defining their equity metrics in different ways. The city of Austin actually has a really impressive platform that I appreciated because I thought they did a really meaningful job of bringing together the data about their workforce, but also about the goals that the departments were setting, tracking their progress, and really making it really public. I would always joke that I can be sitting here in Chicago and learn about what the water department in Austin is doing around equity. So I aspire to get to that level, but I'm really grateful for that. Additionally, the chief equity officer in Minneapolis, I've just really appreciated a lot of her strategy in thinking about capacity building. So often when we think about equity officers, I think sometimes we just think about, oh, this is the person who will stand up on this issue and that issue and that. And I think that's really important. And so I don't mean to diminish it in any way. But I think equity so fundamentally is about laying a foundation, thinking about systems and really trying to think about how we do business. And a lot of that work is work that people never see, but is so meaningful to outcomes and to impact. And so I've just really appreciated the ability to pop open the hood with some of them and really talk about how do you build capacity of a department to really understand. There are a lot of people in city government who really want this and are really excited about this work. How do I give them the tools that they need, support them in thinking about how to make different decisions, how to look at their outcomes and really do things differently. And how do we build that together? I don't know how to run a water department. I never, hopefully I never will quite. That's not what I necessarily aspire to be. Shout out to the water department, but how can I help them that know how to do that job, do it in a way that's more inclusive, more equitable, and drive that more dynamic outcomes for all of our residents of our city?
You want to get the next one, Helen?
Yeah, so the city also has a chief diversity officer. Is this position also new? And what is the responsibility of that position?
So actually, new and also predates me. So there was a chief diversity officer that was established about a year before I started under the previous administration. That was Marcus Miller. You saw him on the earlier slide. He is now on my team because when I found him, when we found each other, we began talking about the ways in which our work just was so connected, and it made sense for us to sort of team up and sort of work together. So Marcus is a part of my office, and we sort of co-create strategies. I think the DEI work is really foundational. I think of equity largely as an umbrella around that work. I think it's necessary to have meaningful, you have to take care of what's inside the house and who your people are, especially as you're thinking about what you're going to be producing. And so I see it as really foundational to the work and very specific. So I'm actually very, very grateful that for Marcus and his talent and his genius that he offers to the work, which I think makes a lot of the work then that I do at thinking about practices and systems and outcomes possible.
Cool. can get the next one. So this is a bit of a heavier question, but as everyone likely knows, the nation's capital was attacked last week by a pro-Trump mob, and many of them were from the far right carrying Confederate flags in the nation's capital. Could you comment on these events and and say anything about what we can do to peacefully confront and push back on this racist and violent part of America?
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge question. And I'll be very candid with everyone. Like, I feel like personally, I'm still processing it myself. I don't know that I have a great answer. I think that's really, I say that, very clearly too, because I always try to remind folks that, yes, I'm the chief equity officer, but I'm still learning. I'm still on my own journey in this work. I have the privilege of learning a lot and bringing that to the work, but in no way, shape, or form do I always feel like I have the answers. Just one of the thoughts that I'll share that I've been sitting with is that if I really think about equity work, one of the guiding principles is that I try to think about this work really structurally and at a systems level, and push myself to think past just individual incidents. And so what made this moment possible? What about the folks that weren't necessarily in the event, but enabled the event, that co-signed the event? What do people in my own community think about this? What does this moment mean for us? Who are we? How are we processing this? What does this mean about what's possible for us? What does this tell me about where the work is? How do I think about what we need to learn? Is this a moment that reveals to folks the urgency of the need to build work? These are the questions I sit with as I process as an individual what is happening. And so I think, we can't help that, these individual incidents and individual collection of individuals will always have impact on us and how we are thinking about the world and seeing the world and processing the world. But we can't stop our analysis at the individual. I always push myself to think about systems, because systems outlive us. Systems continue to run and to flow. And how do I make sure that this moment is that I take power back from moments and think about what I can build, what can be possible. Even if I can't do it all in that one day, I'm not superhuman, but I try to center my thoughts back to that. And that's a place that kind of show up the next day from.
Thank you.
Okay. So the toolkit you put together on the Together We Heal website is full of great resources. How and from where did you compile that information? And what was your guiding principle?
Yeah, so I actually had a ton of people actually help pour into that. So I have the privilege of both working with an awesome team that pulled together a number of resources. CCA, the Civic Consulting Alliance, has supported us also on Together We Heal. And one of the things that was actually really important as we designed this is that we had 6 anchor partners. And the purpose of our partnership was to both be a part of the work, but also guide the work. So tell me where I'm missing something. Tell me what I'm not thinking about. Is there a resource you have access to that I don't? Is there a flag that you want me to see? And so they also helped add some materials and lifted up some things there. Also, shout out to our Chicago public libraries. They're amazing. If you need to develop a toolkit, you ask those folks at the library, they will get you all together. So I'm really grateful for them. They always have really great ideas about how to pool resources, especially when it comes to learning.
Great. Actually, we had a question from the live chat from Daniel around libraries, asking about the information that shows the history of racially discriminatory practices such as redlining in Chicago. Is that the information that the library has? Is a lot of that online, or do you still have to physically go to libraries to get to some of that stuff?
Yeah, so I don't know the full extent to that answer. I imagine there is certainly some stuff online that you can access. But one, I think the libraries are still open, so you can just call and ask too. I know they'd be incredibly helpful. I know they have the Harsh collection too. I'm not quite sure how much of it is fully online or not, but it is a collection that I've actually gone to a couple times now for different programs. When we did the Red Summer event, they were able to pull some really great resources for us from that collection. I would say just call. They'd probably be more than happy to help. And then sometimes they've even also helped, bring some resources online if they, just needed like a scanning or something. And so sometimes that has been helpful too.
Thank you. We have another question here from the live chat. So let's see. I'm curious how the concept of talking about efforts in terms of healing was developed. It's an interesting word choice. Why healing and not justice or reconciliation, let alone reparations?
Yeah. Just to be really candid, it was the word that kept coming up. And I think, I believe there are a lot of intersections and connections with the words justice and reparations and reconciliation. And in fact, those words are still coming up. But healing, by and large, was the word that kind of pierced so many conversations. Part of the way we landed at Together We Heal is, quite frankly, I was just going about my business, doing the work during COVID, having community conversations, talking to stakeholders. And I just kept hearing people talk about holding healing circles. We really need to heal as a city. Will we ever heal from this as a city? And so that's just where that specific word choice came. But I do think it has through lines with people's calls for justice, people's call for reparations, for repair, for reconciliation. And I see healing as a journey. I see it as not just a destination. And I think that journey takes us along roads of justice seeking, reconciliation processes. And so I think there's so much that this moment can hold. Healing just happens to be the word that we use, but I think my vision is that a lot of people see themselves and see their work in this. And we really tried to create something that wasn't so rigid to say, this is the only way you can heal. This is the only way you can think about this moment. And really to make space for people to name the things that are really important and that we need to advance as a city in order to move forward.
Cool. I can take this from the live chat. So given that so much racial tension in Chicago stems from community experiences and interactions with the Chicago Police Department, what are some ongoing initiatives right now that are addressing the spacious chasm in the wake of George Floyd and everything that's happened in the past year?
Yeah. Oh, did I lose folks?
No, I'm here.
Interesting. My screen shifted.
Can you hear us still?
I can hear you. I'm going to find you too. There we go.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it was the PowerPoint. Sorry. I was like, wait, what? So one of the things that we have done, Together We Heal is not just an ask of the external community, but it's something that we're asking internally. And so actually this week, we have activated something we call Together We Heal City Activation Week, where we've actually asked each one of our departments to hold a healing conversation, and including our police department and our public safety departments. So a big part of this for me is also kind of turning the mirror back on ourselves to say, what does healing look like for us? What are we experiencing in this moment? What do we need to learn? I definitely think there is a lot of both, policy work that's happening when we think about public safety. There is, the progress that needs to be made for sure. I also think, though, that, people need to have the space to reflect on and find their why in some of this work. And so, being able to talk inside the house about what do we need to do differently is so important. And so that is something that we are trying to create space and support all of our departments on through our city activation week. But I'll just say, like I said before, I don't think this is going to be something that we see change. The change that needs to come is going to be long, and it's going to be hard. I've been really empowered by some of the work that I've seen in the strangest of places, and also really discouraged by the lack of progress in others, in places where you think there'd be a whole lot of progress. And so I think that is our challenge. How do we meet in that moment? Where are the spaces for community and government to really come together to talk through the hard stuff, to build the powerful stuff, and to actually chart a path forward? And so I don't profess to know all of those answers. I try to create spaces and connect people to the work that can move us forward. But I actually think a lot of the genius and the partnership and the ideas come from our abilities to connect and actually hold that space and really own the work.
Cool. I think we have time for one more. You want to take it, Helen?
Yeah. So this is a big question. So Chicago is one of the most segregated cities in the U.S. How does Together We Heal plan to work around this fact?
Mm-hmm. So Together We Heal meets Chicago where it's at. It meets it in its segregation, and it meets it in its challenges, its confusions, its inequities. One of the things, and this is one of the reasons why I actually really love Tanika's project, Folded Map, is that she has developed a beautiful project and a strategy that says, you should know you have a map twin somewhere in the city. And the experience that they're having right now, what their community looks like, so often looks very different than yours. Can you understand that? Can you see that? Can you actually experience that? Part of her Folded Map project right now actually asks people to find their map location and actually just run some errands there. Go to the grocery store, pick up some toothpaste. So you can actually not just visit, you're not a visitor to the community, but to actually experience it as someone who lives there and to fundamentally understand. So that way, when we call for issues that push toward equity, that call for different resources in different communities because they have been historically disinvested in, you have an understanding of why. You understand that is not a threat to your life, but that is meant to build and create more inclusion. Or that you believe that if you are from a community that has been historically disinvested in, that the ability to connect and see that there are folks who will work and who can vision and who you can share and build that relationship with. The story of the map twins that I know that she's highlighted is just so beautiful, because they're like, we don't know if we can solve segregation in Chicago, but we can have a relationship with one another and actually build some pretty powerful things. And I think, the power between those kind of individual experiences, when applied to how we think about systems, can be the thing that really pushes our city in a different direction. And so we are Chicago. We are beautiful. We are resilient. We are challenging. We are problematic at times, and we are segregated. created. That is our truth. But our power and our potential is in what we do with all of this.
Thank you.
Well, I think that's a nice uplifting note to end on. We're just at about time, actually. So thank you again, Candace. This was really wonderful. Thanks for your time and for all the work that you're doing and for joining us tonight.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. Host the event, put it on the map, and join us on Friday, January 29th for the Together We Heal Summit. But I'm really grateful to be with you all. Even though I can't see you, I'm imagining all the feels in the room together. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. I think that the only thing to note to everybody else is that we'll share the link out to the post live stream call on the live chat. We'll be going there directly after this live stream concludes. And I think the very last thing we always like to say at the end of our hack nights is, wait, do you know it, Helen? You want to do it?
Yeah. Stay safe. Take care.